let's talk a little bit more about working with abstract classes. And I'm going to define an abstract class here and talk about the abstract properties and abstract methods and how you can override them, because you have to. You can look in the abstract class project within object-oriented folder. You're going to see that you have an abstract class. This is going to tell the compiler that we're actually going to not be able to instantiate this class. This is serving as a base class only. If you try to instantiate it all the way at the bottom, well, you're going to get an error. So you can take my word for that, or you can try it, see the error. It's up to you. But there's a lot of detail here, so I'm going to jump within the class here to show you what's going on. So when you declare something as abstract, then you can further declare your properties and methods as abstract as well. Now, you can see that we have our protected data here, protected variables here. These are going to be accessible from derived classes or the base class itself, as we know from working with protected and understanding access modifiers. So we just have a constructor here, which is going to just write out that this is the base constructor. Then we have some get and sets, like when we're working with properties, as you will remember from working with properties. This allows us to work with the protected data or the private data, not give that access to whoever's using our class. And this is going to, with the abstract keyword, force the derived classes to implement get and set, as you're going to see. You could also write it like this, different than you might expect from writing it out like this. You can also write it like this if you wanted to. If you uncomment that, you'll get an error if you don't override x1 as a property in your derived class. And then we have an example of not using abstracts. So we don't have to override this. It's not abstract. Then we have the abstract modifier here for working with our methods. So we have to override each of these three. And note also that the abstract here, this is going to allow us to work with this type of semicolon after our methods because we don't have any implementation there, so we can use that syntax. Same thing with the properties. You can use the syntax like this. It allows you to do that. Otherwise, if you don't have an abstract here, for example, then this is not going to work because you have to actually implement something there. Abstract says you don't have to implement it in the base, but you do in the derived. So there we have three, and we have to override those. So we do in our derived class from personal video player. We have an override for that first property, which we're accessing that protected data, get and set, no problem. Value again is just going to use the value that the user of this class is going to use from the property, capital X, and that's the value, the keyword. No big deal. Just return X back to the client, whoever's using it. And then we didn't actually put any implementation code here, but we did override it. So that's not going to cause an error. So we did actually override it. Using the override keyword, as you can note, we do that again. And then we have it again here for the other method. But here we implement something. And then the last one, we implement something, we follow the signature, and we return along, because that's what it specified in the base class that we had to do. That's the signature that it wants. We're forced to do that. Then we have a destructor like we have with our destructor for our base class. So this is also going to show you how the destructors work within the base classes and also the constructors. So here we actually create a new instance to our myPlayer with P1. We're going to set those two properties. Then we're going to get those two properties right here. X and Y, capital X and Y. Then we're going to do the play music, and then just pass a string to download list and see what it does. There we go. Base constructor called, then the derived constructor is called. That's the order. First the base, then the derived constructor. So instantiate the class, and then initialize anything you want in the base. Then that derived is going to get called. Then we set our properties. Then we just call that method, which is outputting this. Then we're outputting a string because we call that other method. And then our destructors. We're calling the derived destructor first, and then the base destructor last. So base is going to be last, and the more we derive and the more we use that, you can see the order that we're going to be using. And again, note that you can use the abstract modifier on classes, methods, properties, indexers, and events. So it has some great functionality. It's a great way to construct your systems.